Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this evening's episode of Talking Point. I'm your host, Syed Neaz Ahmad. In our studios today, we have a writer, a creative director, a freelance journalist, a philanthropist, a social thinker, and a social worker. And if you thought I have a band of people in my studios today, no, that's not the mold of this program. We have a gentleman, Imran A. Chowdhury. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for calling me. I'm honored, humbled, and delighted.
Thank you very much for making time for us, particularly that when you told me that you have driven for 3 hours all the way from Northampton, and of course, on a Friday evening, the traffic is awful.
Manic. Absolutely.
Let's begin the first things first to say. For the benefit of myself and our viewers, I would like to know, where did this journey for you begin? The journey of your life, somewhere in Brownbury, somewhere out in rural Bangladesh, or somewhere else, and then you worked up your way, and now today you are in England.
Thank you. The journey, the life, travels in a very precarious way, to say the least. The journey for me started in Bangladesh. I was born in Dhaka. Mm-hmm. I lived almost 24 places in all over Bangladesh. Mm-hmm. Been to 30.
Were you a traveling salesman?
I wasn't. Both parents were working in the government service, hence we were posted from one end to the other, to the other, to the other. So length and the breadth. South to west, east to west, north to south. Literally, before I was coming here the other day, I was counting my places where I have been. So I lived in 24 places, and from school to do my matriculation, I've been to 13 schools. That's a long list of schools.
You must have a long list of friends.
I have, trust me. If you, anywhere, any district town that I had been to, and the schools that I've been to from primary, secondary to up to higher secondary, I still got friends and I talk to them. Mm-hmm. I have not lost any friends. I still have friends who are living in like Chowdhury, mm-hmm. who are living in Sylhet, who are living in Brahmanbaria, who are living in Rangamati. Some of them migrated to Mizoram. I still talk to them. Some of them migrated to all over the world.
Well, where did you finally end up in Bangladesh? I mean, in Dhaka, in Brahmanbaria, in Chittagong?
No, finally I ended up, before I moved to UK, last 5 years of my life, I was stationed in Dhaka. Mm-hmm. But to start off with, basically...
When you say stationed, it sounds very much like army style station.
Not army, I mean, before I moved, after I left army, I was stationed in Dhaka for 5 years, and then I thought of coming to this country. But to be honest with you, I ought to say this. My journey of life started, and whatever you see today, I am a product of 1971. Mm-hmm. The 1971, the war of liberation, I don't want to say war, the liberation of Bangladesh is what embodies me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But how old were you then?
I was 11 years old.
And 11 years old, and it impacted on your life like that?
Enormously, enormously. I dream, I talk, I cherish my good times, I cry for the bad days. It haunts me. I have a lot of bad memories, the fear factor, the psychological impact.
Where were you then, in Brahmanbaria?
The war started, before the war started, we were stationed in Brahmanbaria because my mother was working in one of the schools. She was a teacher there. My father was posted in Sylhet, so mm-hmm. I was a student of class 7. I was supposed to go to cadet college and all that. Plannings were going on in the family because at the time the family thought it is better to have a boarding school for all the sons so that they don't have to travel around with us.
Yeah.
But the run-up to this liberation war, January, February, March, I was at home, no schools, colleges, everything was closed. My elder brother was a candidate of, metric candidate in 1971, which was supposed to happen I think in the month of April, 2nd of April or something. And it was a tremendous time, very precarious moments. The whole country stood still. There's no schools, no colleges, so there was no control on the family. And my brother and I, we got involved, enticed into going into the processions, the meeting, the 21 February.
Your father, you said, was a police officer.
My father was in the police, then he was deputed to the EPR, East Pakistan Rifle, and he was stationed in Sylhet. But we lived previously in Sylhet. My ancestors, my grandfather's family, in a sense, they come from that part of the country.
You can trace your roots to Sylhet.
Yes, yes. My mother's family originally comes from Habiganj, but my mother's grandfather migrated to Calcutta, and they were all teachers and everything.
Right.
So, but we have roots in Sylhet.
It was perhaps normal those days to move to Calcutta for a more enlightened atmosphere.
It was the epitome of the Oxford of Bengal, you can say, or maybe the London of Bengal. Very upmarket.
Well, it was the capital of British Empire at that time.
Till 1909, from 1757, if you talk in real terms. So then we were, on the 25th of March, before the 25th of March, Brahmanbaria is a very culturally thriving town, if you know about Brahmanbaria. It's an eclectic mix of Hindu, Muslims, Christians. I went to the mission school in Brahmanbaria. The name of the stadium is your name, Neaz Ahmad Stadium. Right opposite there, the SDO's house, and there was a small...
Is it still named Neaz Ahmad?
It is still. He was the SDO, sub-divisional officer, and the stadium was named in his name, I think in 1960-something. He was a very benevolent kind of a SDO. SDOs were a very big thing in those days. So
Hakim.
And there was another town called Farokhi Market, and Farokhi was also a SDO of Brahmanbaria. Anyway, 25th of March, the crackdown happened. Families splitted. My one brother in Cadet College in Rajshahi, one sister in Dhaka in hostel. We 4 brothers and sisters, and my elder brother just came from Sylhet. You know, perhaps the last train that he took from Sylhet to come and meet us. And 26th morning, we heard the radio. And the army was already there. We were living very close to the Neaz Ahmad Stadium, where the army...
When you say army, you mean Pakistan?
Pakistan Army, and I still remember those, the Pakistan Army in their khaki. And the divisional sign was the tiger, the mouth of a roaring tiger. That was the divisional sign for the 14th Army or 14th Division that was stationed in Dhaka. And they were already there. And we were Humayun Bhai, Shachu Bhai, the MP Chilo, and then Ali Azam. I mean, I was 11-year-old, but I was involved with my elder brother. He was very, very, very...
So how were you involved? What did you do?
Processions, roadblocks. If you come from Kumilla to Brahmanbaria, there is a bridge called Kurullar Khaler Bridge, if you know. I don't know whether you know about Brahmanbaria or not.
I have been to Brahmanbaria, yes.
That canal was actually dug by Mr. Anderson. It's called Anderson Canal. It's to tie up 2 sides of Titash, a kind of an estuary to connect Titash, so that the salinity of Titash in Gokon Ghat, there is a launch ghat on the other side of Brahmanbaria, remains. So Mr. Anderson, actually, he was probably district magistrate or something in the British times. So he dug that canal, and there is a bridge on that canal. We started digging so that the Pakistani army from Kumilla cannot come. So we start digging in on the other side of the canal, a big ditch by 12 by 12. The whole road was taken away in perhaps in 2 to 3 hours.
Must have been a sizable number of people.
Oh, hundreds and thousands, hundreds and thousands. So 26th, we listened to the radio, and by this time, this is an important thing that I ought to tell. I was telling one of my army friends the other day, and he said to me, Imran, why didn't you write? I said, I will, give me some time. Actually, the revolt in Brahmanbaria by 4 East Bengal Regiment was actually done by Shafat Jamil. He is the champion. That time we did not know who is Khaled Musharraf. So 4 Bengal revolted. later on I know the names, but that time I was too young to know anybody's name, but we know Captain Shafat Jamil. His name was there in everybody's mouth. And because my mother was involved in politics, so in our house, a lot of people used to come and seek her blessing, in other words. So then, next morning, we were standing, there is a road called Kumarshil Road, which actually joins Brahmanbaria with Shorail, and then it goes all the way, Shabashpur, Chunarughat, Hobbyganj to Sylhet. That's the road, old Sylhet Road.
Yeah, I've traveled on that road. Yes.
So এখন তো bypass হয়ে গেছে, you don't have to come to Brahmanbaria, you go from Bhoirab and that way, but that was the original road. And about 11, 12 o'clock, and we just go home to sleep, and we are always out on the street. Very unusual for us to do that, because very regimented life we had before that. My mother was a disciplinarian. My father was 0500 wake up, 0700 breakfast, 8:23 we all go for school, come back and don't leave home till you have looked at the dictionary and read about 15 words, and you have to tell the pronunciation and the meaning. If you can do it properly, then only you are allowed to go out and play. So that was the lifestyle, very regimented, in other words. But when this movement happened, no one tells you anything.
Right.
So it was like a free ride. My brother is taking me everywhere, and my brother was my best friend. He was my mentor. And
can we move slightly further, because you will run out of time.
Okay. So what happened then, we were standing in Kumarshil Moor, and we knew that I think they had a communication through wireless, that a body of troops is coming from Sylhet.
Right.
So the people are standing on both the sides. I was standing on my brother's shoulder on the wall of the Matri Shodan, which is the maternity hospital, right opposite the
He must have been very strong.
He was a big lad, very big lad, yes, he was. And there were 5-6 cars, but later on I find conflicting information. It's about 5-6 jeeps and lorries, the 3 tons, Pakistan Army 3 tons, big ones, Bedford.
Yeah.
So the jeep stops, a gentleman comes out, cigarette in his lips, wearing a beret, green beret, চুলগুলো একটু বড় বড়, normal army থেকে একটু big size. He comes out and he walks. তো ছোটবেলায় আপনার ওই আমার আম্মা অ্যাকালেস সম্পর্কে বলতো, যে গ্রিক বিজয়ী হেলেন অফ ট্রয়ের ট্রোজান হর্স নিয়ে এসে কিভাবে ডিসেপশন করেছিল, how he won the war, how he was welcomed, epitomized by Homer and Ulysses, if you remember those epic stories. So the gentleman walking towards the crowd, I didn't know who he was. I just looked at him and I thought, oh my God, Akal is coming. Later on found he was none other than Major Khalid Musharraf. So I immediately, and the whole town just pin drop silence, absolutely. I mean, you could hear a pin dropping on the tarmac of the road, just dropped. He came, he stood there in the corner. Ustad Alauddin Khan er bashata oikhane konatai. And he spoke to the people. We couldn't hear what he said. And Khalid Musharraf Jindabad. It makes me cry. And
how old were you then?
I was 11.
11.
I was 11. And I just thought, when I grow up, I'll become an army officer and join East Bengal Regiment.
I know, but at that age one can become so emotional, and something that you saw was so inspirational.
Absolutely. Still 46 years, yeah, it makes me cry.
And the poor chap lost his life fighting for his country, killed by his own men.
Yes, that is the dichotomy that we have. I try to...
Okay, Mr. Imran, at this point we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll pick up the thread of Liberation War. That's a very interesting story.
Thank you.
Okay, don't go away. Sit here. We'll be back soon. Don't go away.
How is it?